a few more people jumping in. Lynn, would you like to wait a couple minutes or?
Yeah, I think that's fine to let everybody get
Okay.
in.
Thank y'all for joining us on this webinar, Introduction to WebGrants webinar. This will be led by the Division of Parks and Recreation, aka State Parks, because they're in control of this. So my team, RRS, I see different people online: Scott Payne, Trey Fouché, Blake Covington. And I know there'll be a few more jumping online here. So we're either your first point of contact when you apply for grants and in managing PARTIF and LWCF grants. But Lillian is the control of all of this, right, Lillian?
He pretends to be.
Okay. And Vonda Martin, the program manager for grants and outreach with State Parks, is online as well. And Candy, I don't see Candy online yet, but if she joins us, she is your lead for Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is different than the Land and Water Fund. We're not talking about that one today.
Yeah, that's one of the only ones not in the fold. We also have Sam Little on here. He's our Complete the Trails grants manager.
Oh yeah, I saw him registered as well.
Hi, everybody.
So I just wanted to, this is Vonda, Manager of Grants and Outreach for DPR. I am going to place and reiterate that Recreation Resources Service at NC State University is your first point of contact for all grants. Me and my team are on the back end of the administration of grants. We do contract disbursements, awards. Actually, the Parks and Recreation Authority selects those. And so we are the administrative backside. Charlene and her team are the on the ground first point of contact. So just for you veterans, I know that you know the spiel already, but for you newbies, we're excited that everyone is here, and I think we probably should get started.
All right. Can everybody see that okay?
And Lillian, I meant to add, folks, you can use the chat window as she goes through this. If you have questions, just pop them in the chat window and we'll facilitate those when she's ready.
Thanks. Yeah. If there's any that can't answer immediately, we'll address those at the end and then open it up for everybody to ask questions, just using your mic. So thank you everybody for joining us for the intro to web grants and a little preview of what the PARTIF application will look like in web grants. We are very excited that our grant programs are moving online for many reasons, but we're starting with the PARTIF application next week in the system, and we'll move into adding many of our other grant programs. So WebGrants is a web-based full lifecycle grant management system. It will allow DPR to post all of the grant opportunities online, manage the full grant lifecycle, so reimbursements or payment requests, amendments, status reports, inspections, everything will be here. And it will also give us all a central database for access to grant files. So as we all have turnover in every area, you'll be able to see what your town or county has gotten from PARTIF or LWCF or Recreational Trails Program in the past. So like, as I said, we're starting off with PARTIF. That application is going live in WebGrants next week. And then additionally, we'll have accessibility for parks, Complete the Trails Fund, Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership, and Recreational Trails Program also in the new system. The other big one that's not is North Carolina Land and Water. They have a separate grant management system at present. So prospective applicants or consultants can register for an account with WebGrants. You can view any funding opportunities that you want to see or are eligible for, and you can create an application and complete it there. You can work together on it. You can have as many people as you want to working on a single application. As you work through them, you can submit them for part of an LWCF and AFP to RRS to review and give you feedback. And then for our other grant programs for the other staff to help you work through so you can get your best application possible submitted to the funding boards. And then over the next calendar year, awarded applications and currently active grants and closed grants will all be a part of the system. We'll manage everything there. So no more big bundles of paper scanned in to RRS for the part of reimbursements. WebGrants is an easy to use platform. It is very intuitive. It's used for state grant programs across the country and for Land and Water Conservation Fund across the country. It does give applicants more opportunities for support and feedback as they move through the application process. You have more opportunities for review, and more opportunities to make changes up until the funding opportunity closes. And then what you got is what you got. It does give our office at DPR more grant management efficiency, will give us faster turnaround times on activities during the grant life cycle. And then it will be a centralized repository of information for everybody in the next year. So the first step is to register for WebGrants. There is a link to the registration guide here in the presentation that we'll share out after the session. There's also one on RS's website, and later today there'll be one on the DPR website, and then of course we can send it to you. And if you have any issues registering, you can feel free to contact me. I can help you get in. We will start to send out communications through WebGrants, moving away from the big email list. So it is important to register and keep your profile updated. So on November 1st, the Partif funding opportunity will be posted in WebGrants, and the new application will be available there. For this year, the Partif application will be a hybrid. You'll have the option to do it in WebGrants or continue with the paper submission. The two will match each other in terms of flow and structure. And then next year, applications will be online only. So I said for our timeline, we're starting off with Partif, November 1st, 2023, and the application window will still close on May 1st, 2024 at 5. Within the calendar year of 2024, we're going to move LWCF, complete the trails, RTP, and ORLP into WebGrants. So if you're registered in the system, you will get the notification of funding emails for all of these. And I'm not just going to throw everybody into the deep end and let you figure it out for yourself. We're going to host monthly trainings for the new system. So this is our timeline. The first one will be in December, just be kind of the basics. So system communications, where you can go and look on a grant record and see all of the communications related to it, and a review of the funding opportunity and how to read all the information in it. In January, we'll do some application tips and tricks, because our hope is to have more applications in there for us to go through all of them. They will be very similar. The requirements for them will be different, but the functionality will be the same. In February, we'll talk about what the application review process looks like. So for Partif and LWCF, what it looks like for RS, what it looks like for DPR, and then what it looks like for the Parks and Recreation Authority. We will do a similar review conversation for the other grant programs as well. But I don't want to speak out of turn for Sam and Olivia. In March, we'll talk about what happens after you're awarded the grant. So what the contract process looks like through WebGrants, what setting up your contacts looks like, or changing your contacts if at the time of application your or your primary contact for the grant activities is changed to a new person, how to switch all that out. In April, we'll talk about inspections, which for most of my stuff, RRS does for us. Status reports are the 5-year inspections that we ask our locals to do themselves, and then how to request amendments as needed in within WebGrants. In May, we'll look at submitting payment requests or claims or reimbursements. All the forms that you typically fill out on paper now will be housed in here. In June, we'll look at project closeout and what you can expect that process to look like online. And then finally in July, what post-compliance forms and issues will look like within WebGrants. So I will get with Charlene and get some dates. They'll schedule them the same way for this one and let everybody register. We'll send out the full schedule in the next couple of weeks, so you can go ahead and plan to join in any of them that interest you. And now we'll look at the part of application in WebGrants. The content of the forms is largely the same. The format, of course, looks different. And it flows a little bit differently, but we're still asking for the same information. So to start an application, you do have to be registered in WebGrants and associated with an eligible organization for that grant program. So for instance, for part, if you have to be a local government or public authority. If you are a consultant working with local governments, you would register under your organization, and then the local would just have to let us know that you were working on their application so we could add them to your profiles. The application in WebGrants is grouped into 6 different components, not unlike the categories on the old paper checklist. The general information is what we just looked at, where you title and associate your contacts. And then the next few we'll look at more directly. So the part of application section is your basic facts and assurances and your project description and justification, and your certification from local official. The project description and justification will have character limits, so we're still holding to the 1-page requirement for description and justification. The site information section will have your site plan, your recreational facilities, any land acquisition forms, the site suitability questions, and your site control for you to upload the attorney certification of site control. We have a planning and public involvement where you can upload, you can see in the screenshot here, the master plan and the comp plan. As you scroll down in this section, there are places for the public involvement pieces for your survey, for your presentations to the local board or local groups. The next section is the project costs. It's the budget. Excuse me. So there you'll list out your project costs, not dissimilar to the paper form you do now, and there'll be a section for you to list your source of matching funds as well. And then the environmental review, we did update that for this year to add a little more, beef it up a little bit, if you will. And the addition is that we will ask locals to use these resources to investigate the environmental or possible environmental concerns for the site, so that when we can complete our environmental assessment in the office, we do have all the information to go ahead and do that. And so I just put a little reminder of the training calendar up here. And we can start to talk through questions. or hear any comments or anything else, any things you'd like to see from the office as we start to roll this out.
Great
Great.
job. Great job, Lillian. I just want to kick it off by sharing with everyone that this transition from paper to an online application is so exciting for everyone. We will no longer be cutting down trees for every part of application that comes into the office. And it's also going to give Recreation Resources Service an opportunity to help you with reviews way more quicker, as they'll have access to the backside of WebGrants. So we're so excited about this. I know that when we listed trainings, we didn't tell you that the deadline for the Part F applications has not changed. It is May 1st at 5 o'clock. And that wasn't listed on the calendar, so I just wanted to re-emphasize that. I also put Lillian's email address in the chat box. If you have any questions after the webinar, please direct those questions to her. And that is all I have. So I know, Charlene, if you'll take over the chat questions, we'll try our best to answer those.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you, Vonda. I know all of us are looking for this to be a much more efficient process. So, yeah, Lillian, first question from Anna Bolin says, do different users within an organization need a separate login? Or do you recommend having one account login for everyone to use to access?
So that's kind of up to how you want to run things. If you all want to use a single login to work on an application, you can. If you would prefer to each have your own, like if you have a primary grant contact, but then the town manager is also going to want to participate in it, it's easier for you to each have your own login, so you do your own activities. So it just depends on how the workflow goes in your office.
But to emphasize that, even with the individual login, you will still have access to the same information. It
Right.
takes you to the same place.
Okay. Great. Yeah, Anna, let us know if there's any follow-up to that. We have Michelle Ball works with a COG, and she tried to register before the webinar, register for a profile, but couldn't get past the organization portion of the profile page. There was no regional council option on the drop-down list. Will COGs and consultants need to register a new profile for each organization they work with?
I can add regional council to the option list after this. And no, you can register one time and just email me all the organizations you need to be associated with. Now, if it is, like I said, if you are a consultant working with local governments, I need the local government to tell me it's okay for you to access their application.
Yeah, so we also listed every county. Is that how it's listed under the organizational portion? And so that's your around, and then you will be assigned once the local government gives you permission. Then Lillian can assign you to that work group. And so that's how a council of government would do it, is just select the every county, unless you know what counties you are working with. I'm not sure, maybe Lillian can answer this, but I'm not sure if you can select multiple counties. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you would select the statewide option, and then we can just add you to whatever counties you need to be a part of.
yeah, that's just communication with our office so that we know which local governments your council of government is working with.
Great. Yeah, that's a good question on that. And Anna had a follow up with about the different logins. Will we all be able to access the same files? I think Lillian said that you'll be linked to that same application.
Yeah, the application is linked to the organization, not the individual necessarily.
Okay. Then Megan Carter asked a question that I had as well. How will the signature requirements work? Because you had like the chief elected official needs to sign off on it. So how will that take place through WebGrants?
You'll have to upload the signed file. Oh,
So yeah, you can complete it in WebGrants, print it, have it signed, and then upload it. We haven't gotten to electronic signatures approval yet for state government. And so as tedious as that sounds, right? It makes it like the old process, but at least you can upload it. You don't have to submit it as a paper copy. Sorry about that. That's just the function that state government hasn't approved yet for electronic signatures.
Something the lawyers go through or have to approve. And Luann said, can you explain more about the list of environmental agencies on that page that you showed? And John
Yeah.
Wood was asking the same thing in that environmental review. Are letters required to be uploaded for each of
Yeah.
those?
I'll be happy to share a little bit more about that. And we can also email that out to everyone. Some of the items, so when your application comes in to recreation, when it is submitted to us, we have an environmental review staff person that goes through and reviews your site. And so to save her time and to make sure that the local government is investigating their own site, all of the things in the list, and I'm sorry, I'd have to ask Lillian to pull that page back up. But all of that, all of those items is the above ground that we go through. That includes your SHPO letter and other items, floodplains. So we put together the list that she goes through. We're going to give that to the local governments, ask you to upload all of that information. And then when we submit the applications to our environmental reviewer, she will already have all of your information, and you will also have all of your information. It's an exercise for you, for the local government, to review your site for environmental concerns. I'm sorry. So we'll be happy to send that list out to everybody that's registered. If you already have a site that you know is going to be your part of application, you don't have to wait until the notice of funding. You know that is now a requirement for this year, and you can go ahead and start your environmental review of your site. We'd be happy to send that out.
Okay. Lillian is missing. I don't know what happened.
That's
She
okay.
she dropped off the call. So she cannot share that slide again.
We'll get it out to all the
Yeah,
registrants.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. We had the environmental review. Jonathan asked if a person leaves an organization and they're the only person that has the login information, how will that work? Can that be reset or for
Yeah,
access?
well, it can be. There she is.
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Not reset, but somebody new would register, right? So it would then like, we will try to keep the contacts cleaned up in WebGrants. But yes, if someone new comes on, please leave them a note to tell them that if they want to apply for Partif or any of the other grants listed within that are hosted by us, that they need to register. But I'm sure there'll be a manager that will share that information as well.
We'll also on a biannual basis send out a list to all the organizations to say, hey, this is who's registered for your town or county. And if there's anybody that we need to close their access or cut off, or close their account or cut off their access, you would just reply back to me and let me know to take them out.
Okay, and Nate asked about sticking with the environmental review. he knows that they look like they align more with LWCF. His question are these preparations, are they eligible as part of the planning cost for Partif? And I guess LWCF is different,
It
the permitting.
It may align with LWCF. LWCF has a more extensive environmental review. These are actual maps that you print out from the links based on your site information or site address. And then you upload those maps. So there's no cost. Somebody just has to do it.
Mhm.
I hope that answers your question, Nate. And you can come off mic if you need, if any of you have questions and they weren't answered.
No, Vonda, I think what you're getting at with the environmental stuff is going to make a more robust understanding of the site. It is a case to where sometimes this information is already pulled together through a comprehensive plan or a site-specific master plan. Is it all right to just pull those elements so long as they align with that checklist?
Yes.
I didn't hear the question, Nate.
If they've already pulled together some of this background environmental work as part of a comprehensive plan or site-specific master plan, those would still be eligible for use as part of the application, right?
They could be, but for our environmental reviewer, I don't want to have to send her through a comprehensive master plan to find the information. We're trying to be more efficient on the back end and get some of our behind the scenes tasks completed so that it's a more efficient process. So
Okay.
yep, you're going to have to upload per the environmental review list, and we will also add to that what the name of each of those documents are so that we don't have 600 environmental review documents that doesn't have your town name on it.
Okay.
So
Sounds good. Thanks.
thanks.
Yeah, and Lillian, when you dropped off, someone had asked about sharing that page with the environmental review, or that slide with that.
Yeah, we'll update it so that we have the naming of all of those too, so that we can put those together, and we'll send it out to everybody registered on WebGrants. It said it's new for 2024 for your Partif application. You can start today. You don't
Yeah,
have
and
to
next
wait.
week when it all posts, we'll have a resource guide that is more involved in the updates on the environmental review, both for WebGrants and for the paper application. So.
Yeah, and just remember there's some lead time if you're getting some of those reviews. And remember, this isn't permits, these are just kind of reviews, and a lot of it is online. So you can go online, look at your park area and print out a little report like on wetlands and things like that. But do it early. Let's see, KDS, a very good question. How does this process affect current grants? And reimbursement process to those active grants that are active right now? Will those be merged over to this online system?
They will be probably in the summer of 2024. We're starting the data migration part next month, and just to get it all in good working order and cleaned up before we start rolling it out to everybody. But yes, all active grants and all closed grants are going to be migrated into WebGrants.
Actually, all of our grants, all of DPR existing grants, that includes Partif, believe it or not, all of our parchment paper LWCF grants from beginning with the 60s will be digitized and also be available for local governments to look up, as well as all of the recreation trail projects. And another thing that this is going to help you with and us with is if a single project has multiple funding opportunities linked to that one site. So for example, let's say that you received LWCF for Parkland Park, and then you were awarded Partif for Parkland Park. Your LWCF and Partif awards and monetary aspects will all be linked to that one park for efficiency on the backside of knowledge, for one thing, that you have more pots of money associated with that site, but also a history. Reimbursements will be there, inspections will be there. So we're going to eventually, give us time, give us a couple years. Eventually, we're going to be way more organized for you to have access to your history and your future. So we're super excited about this.
Let me unmute. Yeah, Peter Raymer has a question about site acquisition for part of, and this is more of a, well, it's a little twofold. It's not necessarily web grants, but will part of fund based on current tax value or current market rate?
So you're asking if an acquisition should be based on a tax value or the current market rate?
Appraised value.
I would say that I would probably do an appraisal. And that's something that you could add to your planning cost if that is 2 years out from your application. Is that correct, Charlene?
Yeah, I would say appraised value gives you more of the market rate, especially if you're doing a donation or yeah, partial donation of the land. Make sure you know that the landowner needs to know what their appraised value is, because tax value is usually less. So you want a realistic idea of what the property value is. So
yeah, and your recreation resource or your RRS consultant can help you with all those details.
Yeah, all right. And so are appraisals uploaded into WebGrants, Lillian, when they are required?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sometimes those are pretty thick documents. Make
Okay.
sure, go ahead and ask your appraiser to get you a digital copy.
Yep.
You know, when you set up how to the contract with them, just make sure you get a digital copy. That way you won't be scanning the whole thing. Okay, I know I had something else. John, I think Lillian answered. Any issues with the web grant application, once you begin to fill it out, you reach out to Lillian or your RRS consultant. And Lillian said, yes, reach out to your RRS consultant first. And then if we don't know, and probably in these early stages, we'll be like, hey, Lillian, help us. But definitely ask us if you have a question. I'm sure other people have a question, and by asking the consultants, and we all meet and share information among us, so we can kind of address some issues if something comes up pretty quickly that way, and just get it out there to know what's going on around the state.
Yeah, and I'll say this: if you are confused about who your first point of contact is, your first point of contact is RRS. We work. The two entities are a team, and so they'll reach out to who they need to solve your issue, and then if we need to communicate with you directly, then we'll just copy RRS, your consultant, and Charlene, if needed, on any of the correspondence, so everybody's in the same loop. But yeah, we're all on the same team, and we're here to help you. We hope that this is as easy as being an Amazon customer. It's just an online registration to get you linked to a project, and so that you get notifications from us when the notice of funding for all of our grant applications come out. So if you're in conversations with colleagues across the state and, hey, have you heard that all the grants are online now for the Division of Parks and Recreation? There's a registration process. Go to RRS, NCSU, or DPR, PARTIF, so that you can get your local government registered. And we're going to be splashing this across the state as well. And we're so thankful that you guys are already registered and ready to go.
Yeah, another question that came up is if, you know, what we see, so what the consultants see. So we're connected to the application. So no matter who on your team, if it's a consultant or if it's, you know, the park director submitting information on the application, your RS consultant will see that whole application.
Yeah, the consultants can see all the applications in their region.
And I also wanted to say, and Lillian, maybe I should form this as a question, but if you're going in and you're filling out your documentation in WebGrants, let's just use the basic facts and assurance sheet. You can save that and come back to it, and it will let you pick up right where you left off.
Right, it stays in the editing phase until you submit it for review, and for part of LWCF, ORLP, and AFP anyway, the first review is going to go to your RS consultant. They can see it anyway, but once you submit it for their review, they can go in and make edits and comments to help you. For Complete the Trails Fund, Sam Little will do that, and for the Recreation Trails Program, Talivia is the first review.
Olivia Brody. And so Charlene, for the review portion, you guys have a deadline. Can you speak to that for if they want a reviewed application?
Yes, and I think it's, I
think it's
forgot the
March.
date.
March 15th.
March 15th. Thank you. Yeah, so the application for part of it's due May 1st. So we asked, March 15th is the deadline for us to be able to review it, because each consultant, they're looking at a lot of different applications, and we want to give everybody time to be able to review it and to give you feedback that you can follow up on. Because, you know, if it's a week before, you're not going to have time to respond to that feedback. Because our goal, we want you to make sure, we want to make sure everything's eligible, and we want you to have the most competitive grant application you can have. So, so a lot of times it's just some feedback on that, or making sure we understand what the project is. So March 15th. So plan ahead to get those documents uploaded.
And Lillian, let me ask you another question. So if in those 6 components that they complete, if they complete one component, can they submit that? Or do they have to submit all 6 of them completed? And then part 2 of that question is, once they complete one of the portions of it, can their consultant go in and review that page or that section once they have it completed?
And when it's submitted, it's the whole application.
I know, but could the consultants review pieces and parts as they're working through their application?
They can see all of it, but it's not submitted for review piece by piece. They can only submit all 6 components to their consultant for the full review. But if this is assuming how they work with the consultants, you guys jump in and correct me. But if they're like, hey, I have this site control document in here, I'm not sure if it's the right thing, then like Trey could go in and look at it and say, yes, that meets the requirements, without reviewing the whole application if they have individual questions.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for all the consultants, but I think we all sort of have our own ways of operating there. Some of us have a hard deadline on March 15th, and we'll review them on March 15th or beginning March 15th. And others of us sort of do a rolling thing. And so I think it's really important for applicants to be in communication with their consultant. I know for me, I will send out an email saying, March 15th is coming up. Make sure you have everything. Let me know if you have any questions. That sort of idea. And I assume all the different consultants sort of will communicate well with their regions.
Yeah, 100% stay in communication with your consultant. They're the best support for getting your application done.
And they're all rock stars, y'all. You know, if they don't have the answer to your question, they'll get the answer, and they can, you know, now they have the insight to your application. And so stay in touch with them, let them help you. they're gonna, you can start now. You know that that Partif is coming, that it's going live November 1st. If you already have your site selected, then you can start working on your environmental review. Get that information to your consultant. Hey, the long-eared bat showed up on one of my environmental printouts. And do I have to do something else because that showed up? Those types of questions could already start to be answered as you move through some of your environmental aspects of your application. So they're your go-to folks. Even a introduction of yourself, if you've never worked with your consultant, and just say, I plan to apply for Partif for this park site, and here's the address. If you want to look it up in Google so you can see it, I can't wait to work with you. We're all in this together. They want you to have the best application. Not that it's a competition on the award day, but there's some side bets going on as to who's going to have the most in their region. And it also gives us and I'm just kidding. It also gives us an opportunity to look across the state as you're putting in or communicating with your consultant to make sure that every area in the state is getting the support they need to put in a competitive application.
Okay, we had another question related to LWCF. Austin Cross asked if the application format will continue to be the NPS federal documents version, or will there be a state version like there's been in the past, similar to Partif? And will we submit web grants for cycle 2 and 3? And I see Candy is ready to go on that.
Hi, we will continue using the NPS forms. That's what they accept, and that will dramatically decrease the amount of revision and extraneous work. And we already know LWCF's a lot of work as it is, so we want to reduce that as much as possible. We will be transitioning. Cycle 2 actually closes next Friday, so my goal is to open up cycle 3 for web grants.
Yeah, those federal forms, previous management of LWCF used a Partif-like form for LWCF. And there's federal grants are specific to federal forms. You can't alter them. You can't change them. And so because there's only 3 of us behind the scenes for the administration of grant funds, and now we have RTP and Connect the Trails, and the Great Trail State is going to be rolled out in 2024. So as we continue to get more and more grants under our umbrella and working through web grants, getting you familiar with it through the trust fund application, we can't take a Partif, a revised Partif for LWCF and turn it into the federal form. So you're just going to have to help us from this point forward. But a SharePoint seems to be working really well for the forms to be placed in there, so you know exactly what you have to fill out. The National Park Service is our partner in this. We're the pass-through. The state is the pass-through for that federal funding, similar to RTP. The state is the pass-through for that federal funding. So we are aligning our grants division section with parks, state funding and federal funding, and trails, state funding and federal funding. And so just stay tuned, get in web grants. We'll send out all of our updates, all of our notice of funding opportunities. All of that will come through web grants. Even though we will send it to RRS, they will send it to directors, and we will continue to work with city and county managers as we get updated lists on a regular basis where there's turnover. So we try to provide as much outreach as possible. If your agency is not getting the information, please reach out to your consultant, and we'll make arrangements to make sure that you get an individual email.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Candy and Vonda. Yeah, if you're applying for the Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund, again, those federal forms, like Vonda said, there's one form for lots of programs across the whole federal government. So that's why some information applies, some does not on those forms. But Candy's great. She'll set up a SharePoint site for you, and your regional consultant from RRS will have access. And you can just upload as you go. And again, we'll review those, and Candy makes sure everything is just what the National Park Service is looking for.
Yep. We'll also give you a sneak peek into LWCF. We understand that it is very, very difficult to understand LWCF deadlines. So there is an opportunity that we are going to go to one deadline that is in discussion right now, where your application will have a deadline similar to PARTIF, and then we will work with you to get all of your documentation, every I dotted and every T crossed, and we will submit those into the round of funding that is the next one available after the August, let's just say it's August, after that LWCF deadline, so that it's not so confusing with all the deadlines that the National Park Service loves to add to our plate. So stay tuned for some of those updates as we get into WebGrants. Use it as a communication tool. Plus your consultant, your RS consultant will also have all of this information. They will have the latest and greatest information. So stay in touch on a regular basis with them.
Yeah, to avoid confusion with MPS dates, I just want to echo it is confusing because the NOFO has a date when they release that on grants.gov, and I know a lot of you are really versed with checking grants.gov, and that's awesome. But they also have a review date that they've not published on grants.gov, which we have to meet. So you'll see our dates are usually significantly earlier. That gives us time to workshop with your RRS consultant and our office to get your application ready for submission into the review period, which is also a date that they don't readily publish. We usually have access to that. They haven't actually released those dates this year, but just so you know, it is a little more complex, and we are working, as Vonda said, to make it an easier process for you, because we understand that it's a lot more complex than we would like it to be, and we want it to be smooth for you.
Thanks, Charlene, for that. We are, state government is full of acronyms. So NOFO is Notice of Funding. You'll start to learn that acronym as we release our Notice of Funding. We'll have NOFO right up in there as that acronym for that. And starting November 1st, which is crazy, right? To think that next week is November. I don't know about y'all, but this year has flown.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, if there's no more questions, or if you think of questions afterwards, we have put the link to the RS consultants and Lillian's email in the chat, so you'll be able to go back and reference the documents and any questions you may have. Don't forget to go to RS's website for the registration guide if you need anything, or the guide. Do we have a guide for we don't have the guide up yet for the application, do we?
It'll be posted with the application.
Okay, so the guide will come out with the NOFO, the Notice of Funding for PARTIF, next week.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time. We got off a little bit early. If you have any questions about PARTIF or any other grants, let us know. We're here to help.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Charlene, if you could stay on, that'd be wonderful. After the recording is stopped, of course. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lily.